I keep getting these ads for a cheap website like an Amazon. It's called Temu, and there's all sorts of cheap tools and stuff on there. And this one thing popped up. It looks like this, and it's like a handheld jack. Well, I looked at it I thought this would be pretty neat. I looked at it a little bit, and I thought, I think I've got something that will do the job. So you can take a clamp like this and change the orientation of the jaws to something like this. So very different. So this would squeeze, and this actually pushes apart to create your own little jack. Now the biggest difference is the tool that was on Temu has a very shallow work surface, so you can get under things that are much shallower. But this is, I think this is 6 inches. I happen to have a tape measure right here, so that is 6 3/16. So you can get under things to jack up, say, a bookshelf or a heavy piece of furniture. And I'm working on an option to maybe shrink this down a little bit to be more like the Temu tool. And the way that you convert your jaw and turn it around is, if you look at each end of the clamp, you should find a little locking mechanism. In this case, it is a tiny little split barrel. You see that? Yep, that little split right there. You squeeze that little barrel together and you can pull it out. Some of them may have a bump out that is part of the metal shaft itself, and you have to either file that off or drill that out. But there's probably one on both ends, much like this guy. So there's actually one on both ends that you would need to take out to reverse the clamp to make a jack like this. And I'll show you how I plan to use this momentarily. Don't use a screwdriver to knock that little spring barrel out. Use the appropriate tool. This is a punch. This is a 1/4 inch, which will fit through the hole just enough to punch the spring out. The spring barrel is what I'm calling it. So I'm going to bang this out and reverse this clamp and show you that. So I told you this is me unscripted. I apparently got the little record button confused when I was pressing the button on my base unit, and was turning it off when I thought I was turning it on, and turning it on when I thought I was turning it off. So missed footage. I can't make up that footage. It was hilarious. It was great. It was the best footage I've ever shot. But here's the point of the matter. On the second little barrel clasp, whatever I was calling it the other day, I was trying to determine if I needed to take the second one off. And if you don't, then I'm just using this nail as a stand-in, then you don't get full reach for the height with the clamp reversed. So you have to do that. Additionally, I'll show you a picture of the wire rack. I call them baker's racks for some reason. We used them in food service for back in my pizza making days. I was going to raise this up off of the floor and realized that it is only about 2 inches off of the ground, which means that I could not slide my clamp underneath it that has a 6-inch minimal height. So this is where the story picks up. Sorry, I'm putting my clamp back together. This is where the story picks up, where I think I found a solution by looking around my environment and finding something laying around that would do the job. I was looking for a hook or a Z-shaped piece of metal or something I could bend in a piece of metal that wouldn't then unbend as I was lifting, to lift up this wire shelving as an example of how to use this as a jack. So I found an interim solution. This is some wire closet shelving that was sitting in a pile to be discarded for recycling, and I was looking for a method to grab underneath here and lift with the clamp itself. And what I came to, I was going to look for something that was a bit of a Z shape to fit underneath there, and then I ran upon this. Now, the clamp head is a little on the big side to fit through here, so I'm going to force it a little bit wider. I'm going to stretch it out. It's not easy for me to do at the moment. And it just so happens that the way that this is cut, it fits around the legs. And now I can, well, I stretched this hole, I should stretch this hole. And remember, this is just junk that was laying around to be discarded or recycled. But the way that this is cut is it reaches around the legs, and I can fit the clamp, the jack, in there like this. And it'll take me just a minute. Just hoping nothing falls off. Something fell off the bottom. Coming down is not nearly as graceful. So what I've done is I've spread the wire apart here so that the clamp will fit in it. So it fits like this. This will go underneath the shelf. This will touch the floor. This will come up to this member right here and raise it up. And I will put a second one over here so that I can evenly raise the shelf. Now that they're both in there, I will squeeze. The clamps will work their way up to that crossbar. I can evenly raise this. Until the wire shelf pulls loose. I know there's some folks out there yelling at the screen going, "You big dummy, why don't you unload the wire shelf, turn it over, and put the casters on?" Well, this is not about me putting casters on the shelf. This is the example of how to use, or an application for, a ratchet clamp that we've reversed to make a jack. So I've reset. I have the piece of wire rack in place. I've got my clamps in place. And I'm going to squeeze. Now this is an extreme height for something that you might want to lift. In some cases you may just need a fraction. So the point being, this is now high enough that I can do the work underneath it that I need to without assistance, using a tool to increase my work capacity and be productive. As silly as it may be. This is just my example. Go forth, come up with your own example, and use a tool. Let the tools do the work. So today was a great example of how things don't necessarily go as planned. Adam Savage from the Mythbusters says, his channel isn't about making, it's about the process, or the making isn't about the end result, it's about the process of the thing. So the original thought, and this also goes to me saying that I don't script anything. I'm also not editing out any of the flubs. I mean, I am compressing it, but I'm making things look pretty for television. I have captured the process that kind of sort of worked, but everything went sideways. I mean, the shelf, the bottom shelf came apart, or came up on that wire rack as I was trying to provide the example of my thought process. The wire shelving bit that I was using to enhance my jack bent, which I didn't notice till after I got through. Let's see, I also put on the casters that didn't lock, which meant that they were scooting all over the place. If I had put on the locking casters first, I could have locked them down, and then the shelf would have been a little bit more stable. Following the process, I called my wife down, I picked it up, she put on the last set of casters, and we're looking at it, and all the shelves are just like all screwed up. None of them were level, so we fixed all that, and it kind of sort of works. So the tool on Temu, they're on Amazon as well, and they're called a furniture lifting hand jack thing. Picture here. That might be something I explore in the future. I like the concept because we've used some other stuff, like, I'll show you. Use some other things like this. These are called Air Shims, and it's a pillow with a valve and a squeeze ball. And so this goes in underneath a filing cabinet. I'm looking at a filing cabinet that's got very little space. You can see that it inflates very, very, very quickly, and this supports up to 300 pounds. So you put one under this corner, one under this corner. That's 600 pounds that it can lift, and a lot of pieces of furniture aren't going to be that heavy. And then that's the release valve. Let's put some pressure on it. My wife and I use these to pick up our china cabinet. Here is how I used Air Shims to lift a loaded china cabinet. The Air Shim fits just underneath, very, very flat. And then pump. So this one did not have enough room, so I will pump till I have enough room to slide that one under. Now you can see the gap. And you release. Wiggle it out. Release. Wiggle it out. To put felt sliders underneath it permanently, so that it was easier to move around, at holidays, or to get the furniture positioned or whatever, and not scratch up the hardwood floors. And these work great. But the hand jack looks like an old bumper jack from cars, and that's what made me think of, hey, that also looks like a clamp, which I've got right there. That's reversed. Reversing the heads on the clamp still gives you a way that you can separate. So if you need to hold a gap, or hold two things apart with a fixed gap versus pulling things together like you would if you're clamping the walls to the back of a box, for example, but you could also push out on that. It's not going to give you a lot of force. I mean, you could actually use a jack for that, like a scissor jack or a bottle jack. This is a handheld version of it. It's a lot lighter, and it isn't going to blow out the material that you're spreading apart, because it only gives you a couple of pounds of maybe a couple of 100 pounds of pressure versus a couple of 1,000 pounds of pressure on a bottle jack. So if that doesn't work because you need a 6-inch gap, or you need something less than a 6-inch gap, I recommend these highly. This is one of the best things that I've invested in for many, many years. We've used these multiple times. Additionally, I showed them to my buddy Robert, and we adjusted his shower door, the glass door. It kept wanting to slide down. We use these to shim it up very, very gently. So anyway, what started off as making a furniture jack out of a set of ratcheting clamps turns into these are a good thing to buy if you ever find them. Thanks.
Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.
Too many hobbies, not enough time.
It's a theme song, y'all.